Today on Locked On Red Wings, Canada outlasts the Finnish comeback and advances to a rematch against the United States in the finals of the Nations Faceoff. And we continue our midseason evaluations with Alex DeBrincat, Patrick Kane, Eric Gustafsson, Vladimir Tarasenko, and Joe Veleno.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a sports writer for C&G newspapers, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University ACHA D1 men's hockey. And Scotty, I guess first and foremost, disclaimer for the listeners, we are recording this between games on Monday. So if you want to hear us talk about USA-Sweden, the game that means nothing, except if you're a Red Wings fan, because Raymond and Larkin are playing each other, probably talk about it tomorrow, but just because of how our schedules lined up, we had to record before the USA-Sweden game. But, Scotty, we do know the championship matchup will be between Canada and the United States, because Canada early on was routing the Finns, and then the Finns staged a comeback, but Canada was able to hold out thanks to an empty net goal from none other than Sidney Crosby. We'll talk a little bit about that here early before continuing on with our midseason evaluations. We got some heavy hitters in today's episode for good and for bad. So with that, Scotty, want to let the people know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Scotty, just real quick, I mean, there's no Red Wings angle to this Canada-Finland game. It was just a game to determine who was going to go on to the championship, and Canada punched Finland in the mouth. What's your first thought on that hockey game, man?
Well, my first thought when the game ended was, that was a close one. I mean, they made it a one-goal game there at the end. That was kind of a wild ending to an otherwise not very entertaining and not very close hockey game. So, yeah, I think really my mind was just focused on, are they actually going to blow it? Which they, probably never were. But, one-goal game is a one-goal game there late. So, yeah, I mean, they were the better team pretty comfortably for probably about 55 minutes of that hockey game. They were pretty comfortably the far better team. McDavid just looked way faster than everyone, which happens no matter who he plays. But I think it was pretty notable in this one, especially early on. So, yeah, I mean, they are pretty objectively a top two team in the world. So I think that it's, only right that there's a rematch on Thursday.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that killed the Finns in this game early was turnovers. Some just ill-advised turnovers right up the gut in the defensive zone. You can't turn the puck over like that to a very skilled Team Canada. And I honestly think the Finns were – the thing that hurts the Finns the most is trying to play a similar style of game to Team Canada that is like a high skill-based game when Team Canada is just stacked. What makes the United States such a good matchup for Team Canada is that they try and play physical to knock them off that skill-based game. So it's basically, if Team Canada can establish the skill and the speed, they'll have the edge. But with USA, if they can establish the physicality and shake them, they're going to have the edge. And Finland just tries to play too much of a skill-based game, and they don't have the talent to compete.
Right.
That being said, though, I really respect the heart that Finland had outside of, the just top-end goal scorers being top-end goal scorers for Canada and McDavid and McKinnon. I really like Mikael Granlund in this tournament. I mean, he scored 3 goals in this tournament, 2 of them in this game during that comeback. I mean, he has really proven himself. The overtime winner against Sweden, he's proven himself to be a pretty lethal goal scorer here for the Finns. I mean, the tournament's over for the Finns, but, dealt from San Jose, having a good season with the bad Sharks, now on the Dallas Stars. I'm starting to think the Dallas Stars might have gotten themselves a little bit of a diamond in the rough. Not that he's ever was overrated by any means, but I think maybe he was better than I was giving him credit for. He looked really good in this tournament.
Sure, yeah, and it's this is gonna sound like I'm trying to just throw them a bone or give them a consolation prize here, but it's a really good roster. It's just you're comparing it to the other 3, right? Or even if you just want to say the other 2. in USA and Canada, which are obviously in the two premier teams. Like, yeah, it's a really good team, and I think that a year from now, when I cannot wait for about a year's time when we're talking about the Olympics, and what that's going to look like. I think that the Swedes certainly, but also that team Finland is going to be a team that that could make some noise. Absolutely, like that's one of the best teams in the world. It's just a 4-team tournament, and they might be the 4 of this 4. That doesn't mean they're bad. It's a really talented roster.
Well, not just that, but they're even more shallow than they already would have been because of the fact that they took injuries on the blue line before the tournament even started.
True,
They
yeah.
lost like 3 of their defenders. Their first, what do they call it? Like the guys they picked first to be on Team Finland's defense to injury before the tournament even began. Most notably, right? Mira Heiskanen was a huge loss for the Finns. So, I just wonder too, like how much better would they have been? Because obviously they're being outperformed by Team Canada for the most part of that game. Although I thought Finland played pretty admirably despite that. But like you think about adding some of those extra stars that they're missing, if it would have been even closer. Because there's a reason why the Finns are in the 4-nation faceoff. It's because they have enough NHL talent to roster a team. Because I've seen a couple of comments of like, oh, why isn't like Czech in this or stuff like that? It's like there's not enough NHL players in the league to roster a team, and Finland does, and that's because they are one of the upper echelon in producing NHL talent. So I think a little bit like, yeah, Canada and USA are the best teams in the world, but also a little bit like Finland had some bad luck going into the tournament too.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
But Scotty, USA-Canada rematch. I think that's what we all wanted to see. This time in Boston rather than in Canada. So we're taking it to our house now. It's going to be – I'm so pumped for this game. I don't think there'll be 3 fights right off rip like last time.
I don't know. I wouldn't take that bet. Maybe not 3, but I wouldn't – I wouldn't take the under on fights, man. I don't know. That's going to be a hostile crowd, a hostile environment. That's for sure.
Well, I just think too, because like now Canada goes into this game kind of knowing what to expect from USA in terms of how they're going to play.
They're able to make adjustments on the physicality that we saw.
Right, and I don't know what to expect out of Jordan Binnington. Obviously, we kind of ripped him. I think deservedly so for not making a couple of saves on goals, but like he also wasn't given any support. Only scored 1 goal against the Americans. You're not going to win that many games scoring 1 goal, right? And then in this game, he was pretty much lights out all the way up until the last few minutes of the third, where he gave up a couple goals. So again, I think it might come down to goaltending again, and if that's the case, America's got him beat. But who knows? Any given night,
if it comes down to goaltending, Canada's in trouble.
But any given night, right? Like Connor Hellebuck in the Stanley Cup playoffs has a reputation of kind of falling apart, being a regular season goaltender. So
I don't. With the amount of talent that is on Canada's roster, I highly doubt it will come down to goaltending. Like,
right?
That just seems like it's not going to come down to Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon. It's going to come down to Jordan Binnington. Like, I feel like it's probably far more likely that.
It's going to come down to Brock Nelson.
Talent is what gets them over the edge, and that is going to be the focal point for Team USA yet again, as it should be.
It's going to come down to Brock Nelson. Brock Nelson's going to be the difference maker.
Good call.
Scotty, I'm so pumped for that game. But let's head to, unless you have anything else to talk about with the Finland-Canada game.
I'm just ready to roll, baby.
All right, let's roll. We got midseason evaluations coming up. Stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. Again, /lockedonnhl. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. You know what, Scotty? You're going to have to bear with me for a second here. Your boy forgot to pull up the website with the tiers.
Oh, the tier maker?
Yeah, say something funny.
Let me think. I don't know if I have
All right, you're out of time. I already got it up.
Well, thank goodness.
You're a waste of space.
Whoa! What the heck? Jeez. That was dramatic. It's your mistake. Golly.
Oh, man.
Crazy comment there. All right. Yep.
All right, we got our midseason evaluations. We're going to continue that and finish it up tomorrow. Apologies that it's taken way longer than normal, but again, the Four Nations Faceoff has taken up a lot of our airtime, and good reason too. It's been a lot of fun. But just to recap, if you're just tuning in to part 3 here, we separated every single player out into tiers: above and beyond expectations, exceeding expectations, meeting expectations, below expectations, and failing expectations. These expectations is based on each individual player. So, for example, you see Dylan Larkin is currently in meeting expectations. That's not a shot at Dylan Larkin. It means our captain is doing exactly what has been asked of him again, which is to play a very high level of hockey, be your captain, be your top line center, and a premier goal scorer on this team. Guys like Lucas Raymond are above and beyond because we were expecting maybe 80 points this year. He's on pace for 88, pushing 90 points. So he's above and beyond our expectations this season. Guys like Ville Husso, failing expectations because we just wanted him to stay healthy, and he can't even do that much. So kind of all over the place in terms of our rankings. It's all subjective, too, so there's going to be rankings you guys disagree with. You can let us know down below. But, Scotty, without further ado, let's move on to the first guy we got today, and that is going to be Showtime, Patrick Kane. That's the guy we want to talk about first. Scotty, how are you feeling about Patrick Kane? Kind of a tale of two seasons.
Yeah, it's an interesting one off rip, man. That's a real interesting one. This is one you absolutely could split between like Lalonde and McClellan and get two completely different answers. I think it was fair to put him in below, and I think at one point early on, maybe even failing. Like legitimately, there was a stretch there in late November, early December where he was producing nothing on a night-to-night basis, and then McClellan took over, and like so many other players, he has caught fire and has been maintaining that level of offensive production since. I feel really good about a meeting expectation here. This is a guy that like we don't expect anything more than good offensive zone production, good power play production, and being on a line that's probably not going to get too many chances or just going to be straight up ineffective in the defensive zone. And that's kind of what he's bringing to the team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if we were being completely unbiased, you could make an argument for below expectations, but letting a little bit of bias and love for Showtime peek through here, putting him in a meeting is completely fine because it is a tale of two seasons, right? When Derek Lalonde was here, he looked wholly unmotivated, and we had an episode, and one episode dedicated to it, but we talked about it on many episodes about his lack of perceived effort on his part. We were perceiving a lack of effort, and we were like, is he just giving up? And then McClellan comes in and sparks back, and he is 17 points in 16 games played. He's a point per game under Todd McClellan. He's a fixture on the power play because that's where that was our expectation, right? Like we knew he was going to be kind of a power play merchant at this point in his career. And since McClellan's come back, he's been very, very good in that regard. 5-on-5 play, I mean, it's hit or miss. He's really great in the offensive zone. You don't expect anything defensively. He's not fleet of foot anymore. But I mean, I'm pretty forgiven with the fact that he's kind of surged lately. I believe he's on pace for about 50 points, if my math was right, because he's only going to play about 72 games because he's missed 10 so far. So on pace for 50 points in 72 games played. And that's not too bad considering his age and the contract that he's on. So I'll take it. I'm fine with putting him in meeting expectations just solely because, he's playing the caliber of hockey we expected here ever since McClellan took over, and we're going to be a little bit biased towards a fan favorite.
Works for me.
All right. Next up, Scotty, let's go with the ever titular Alex DeBrincat, a guy who last year I think we were pretty forgiving of Alex DeBrincat last year. We were in his camp defending him, but there's no denying that the goal scoring wasn't quite there the way we had expected. Only 27 goals last year. I think he set a career high in assists, though. We were defending him, talking about seeing the effort defensively, which is still there this year, but the goal scoring is here this year as well, which was not. Considering what our expectations for Alex DeBrincat were going into the season, where would you put him?
Yeah, the only debate here really is how much above expectations has he been. I feel pretty good about exceeding expectations for him. This is, again, a guy, I've said it a million times on here, but I want the praise to be as loud as the hate was for him last year, because he took it in the teeth from this fan base a year ago that was completely unforgiving of just any style of hockey he played if he wasn't scoring goals, and he didn't score very many goals. And now this year he has improved in, like you mentioned, the defensive zone. He's improved in the neutral zone. There's a lot of things that he kind of has improved on last year. We saw so many assists. He still is getting a lot of passing opportunities this year, but now he's doing it with, he's leading the team in goals still. No, like, I mean, he is doing that with a really high production of goal scoring. So yeah, like for me, this is a slam dunk exceeding expectations. It's just a matter of whether you think it's that over the top to be even higher. I think he'd have to be like point a game or something for me to put him in above and beyond. But I feel really good about exceeding expectations here.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost actually argue to put him in meeting, although I'm like in between. We're with Patrick Kane. I was like between meeting and below. With DeBrincat, I'm between meeting and exceeding. Because for me, him bouncing back and scoring the goals at the clip he is what was expected out of him. And he's on pace for, I think, like 35 goals.
Demanded, not expected.
Yeah.
I feel like those are two different things. I feel like the fan base was like, you better do it, not, oh, don't worry, he will. I think those are two very different things.
But if you want to argue like he's a tick above what we expected, I won't deny that, because he is on pace for 30, I think shy of 36, might just be at 36 goals, on pace for 68 points, would be his second highest point total of his career. Last time he got above that was 2022 when he had 78 points and 41 goals with the Chicago Blackhawks. So if you want to put him a tick above and put him in exceeding expectations, I will not fight you on that one bit. I think I was leaning more meeting, but I'm fine with putting him in exceeding. It's not going to be anything off my back.
Yeah, no, there is zero part of me that would put him in meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. Scotty, let's head to another quick break. When we return, we'll knock out the other three guys we got on this episode. So stay tuned. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. You're going to love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether it's backing your team for a late game rally, let's say you're a Team Finland fan, by the way, or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, that's basketball, not quite hockey. You never feel like you miss a chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you place that first $5 bet and it wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every more with FanDuel, the official sports partner of the NBA. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Ad-libbing a hockey thing in a basketball read makes it a little confusing.
I just appreciate how you said NBA.
I want to change it up every day. Keep you on your toes. Never know if you're going to get it.
You certainly do. You always
never
do.
know if you're going to get the obnoxious Brian or the slightly less obnoxious Brian.
I think I usually know.
Oh, okay. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Let's see here. Next up, according to the images here, is Eric Gustafsson, another polarizing player. God, we got a lot of polarizing players for better and for worse on this episode. I promise I did not plan it out that way. I usually just text Scotty like 5 names that come to mind. And that's how we decide who we're going to talk about that episode. Eric Gustafsson.
We're getting to the end here, too. I mean, everybody's going to be talked about either today or tomorrow. So
Right. In 47 games played, Eric Gustafsson has just 13 points. The question here is, Scotty, is this offensive-minded defenseman who plays sheltered third-pair minutes and power play 2 quarterback below or failing expectations?
Yeah, that 100% is the question. I'm with you on that one. No disagreement there. Man, part of me wants to go failing, to be completely honest with you. Like, we have to think about what the conversation was when he was picked up, right? Like the Wings let Ghost walk, and the conversation was, okay, you might get like slightly less, and maybe it wasn't even slightly. Like we will get less offensive production, but it is still an offensive-minded defenseman. He's not going to put up Gostisbehere numbers, obviously, but like you're still going to have that kind of quarterback on the blue line, and he's going to be better defensively than Ghost was, which is why you're willing to knock 10 or so points off of that Gostisbehere total, probably far more than that. And because he's not going to be a great defenseman, but he's going to be better. Not only has there been very, very little offensive point production, it doesn't seem to be noticeably better defense. I think there's a real argument for failing here. I really do. This went from like one of the signings over the summer that we were talking about a lot, really liking, to being a guy that has been healthied for stretches this season. And I don't think anyone necessarily misses him when he's out of the lineup.
Yeah, I'm pretty, like, talking about it, I'm more and more in the failing expectations camp because of everything you just said, right? Like, we expected a less production. We were expecting between, like, 25 and 30 points. He's only on pace for, I think, 22 this season. We were expecting better defense as a result, but he's at minus 16 on the year, despite getting the softest deployments on the team. Like, literally, if you look at Frozen Dauber Sports usage chart, he is in the bottom right-hand quadrant all the way to the bottom right, which means he is getting the softest deployments and the most offensive zone deployments. So, and yet with that, he can't find the back of the net, and he's hardly assisting on any goals either. And I mean, the frustrating part too is like watching him, you clearly see a player that has like offensive IQ, and he's had some bad luck with it too. But just there's no offensive production. The defense isn't really there. I think putting him in failing expectations is completely fair. I mean, he didn't even get like that post Lalonde McClellan bump. You know what I mean? Like I think he scored 2 goals and we were like, here he comes, and it was like radio silence sense.
Yeah, I'm completely lockstep with you.
Speaking of failing expectations, I guess this is a good segue to talk about Vladimir Tarasenko. We just did an episode last week about whether or not it was time to move on because Elliot Friedman had speculated that the Red Wings were shopping Tarasenko because the fit just wasn't working out. And this is the first year of a 2-year deal where he's getting paid, I think it was like $4.75 million. He's not the goal scorer that you signed him to be, and he was a goal scorer just last year, had over 20 goals just last year. He only has 7 goals and 15 assists in 53 games played. Vladimir Tarasenko, I mean, this is a guy you signed to fill the void on offense, another guy to help fill in for guys who walked out the door. And yeah, he started the year on the left wing, but now they've moved him back to the right wing. You're thinking maybe him playing on his natural side, he'd be better. Nope. And it's been a failed experiment with Vladimir Tarasenko so far.
What word did you use?
Failed.
Yeah, I don't know how it's not, dude. This is, and I'm not trying to be overly dramatic here. I think this might be the biggest slam dunk for failing expectations. Like you have to remember, and that doesn't mean he's the worst player on the team, that just means that given what was expected of all of these guys individually going into the year, who is furthest from that? Who is furthest from their expectations going into opening night? How is it not objectively Vlad Tarasenko? And like that's super sad because like he was supposed to be the top 6 guy, right? I remember when we signed him, we were like, oh, weight off the shoulders. Like we didn't waste the offseason. We went out, we got a top 6 forward. The Wings are in a playoff spot and climbed their way back and have been one of the best teams in hockey since the middle of December without that production. He hasn't contributed to that in terms of point production hardly at all. And it's not like it's not like the DeBrincat thing last year where, oh, he's not scoring, but like, look, he's really good defensively this year. Or like he's, like
even Cat last year was scoring in stretches. It was stretches of not scoring. Right. That was the problem. Problem is Tarasenko's entire season has been one long not scoring stretch.
Right. So I really feel bad to like drive the point home so much and like obviously rooting for him and hoping that he can turn it around. But I don't know how this isn't the furthest on this whole list, how he is the furthest from what was expected of each person going into the year.
Right. 100% agree. And that's why he's in failing expectations. Last guy we have on this season, or this midseason evaluation for today, this season, it's over, is Joe Veleno, another guy that, I mean, is just, he might get... I think I'm less passionate about how underperforming he is just simply because I knew going into the season he was going to be a fourth-line center. Like, I knew that was his role. He's only got 10 points in 50 games played, which is a step back from the production he had last year, 28 and 80. Is he failing expectations? I mean, he's playing wing sometimes. Like, JT Compher just came back, and they got bumped to the wing. Like, he's getting demoted from the center role.
Yeah, man, I don't know. That one's tough just because I don't think expectations were like that high. But like it's certainly below. He's at best below expectations. This is a guy that we have just had such a roller coaster of a relationship with over the last 3 years, man. Like it was, hype early on and he showed flashes and it was short spurts of like, wow, this guy's a really good skater and maybe he can be something. And then there was a huge down year and it was like, okay, well, like we're going to need to see more than that. And that was really disappointing. And we kind of like called him out on the show. I remember 2 summers ago, we're like, he needs to be way better than he was. And last year he was that. He took a step forward and we, admitted that we were wrong about what to expect of him going into the year. And when we did this last year, he was in above expectations. Like he really did take that step. And now this year we've gone backwards again. And I think part of that is probably just the amount of depth scoring that walked out the door, right? Like he's not surrounded by as many point producers as he was a year ago, but like, that's not an excuse for as big of a drop off as he's been. I think a lot of nights, if you listen to the game recaps we have most episodes, I would say we don't even talk about Joe Veleno. You know what I mean? Just kind of out there for 9 minutes, not getting any special teams, not really doing too much on the fourth line, and that's it.
Out there doing cardio. I mean, he is on, so he's played 50 games, so he's missed 5, so he can max out at 77 games. In 77 games, he's on pace for, I think it's 15.4 points, which would be his lowest point total since his rookie season when he had 15 in 66 games played.
Yeah.
So that's still a higher point per game rate.
Yeah. You say he missed, unless there's an injury he had that I'm forgetting about.
Those
scratches.
Yeah,
those are healthy. So like if he plays out, but like there's a decent chance he's got a few healthy scratches left in him at this point.
And like the one thing I don't want to get lost is like we did fully expect at some point Joe Veleno to get pushed off of center. I think we talked about that going into the year. I mean, with
about that last summer,
with Larkin, Casper, Danielson, Compher, Kopp as your depth, right? Not in that order, but just like in your system. Veleno was always the odd man out. So I don't necessarily think we should hold him getting bumped to wing against him, considering Larkin, Comp for Cop are your three best centers, and now Rasmussen has kind of come in. But at the same time, like, he hasn't been good enough to be an everyday player, and this is a guy I think we expected to be still an everyday player to a certain degree. I don't know. At the same time, we were talking about maybe him being, an odd man out when Casper comes in. Casper, of course, was playing wing. I don't know. I don't know how harshly to judge him because he is a fourth line, but he is still performing below expectations. I guess that's it right there. I just said it. Performing below expectations.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's kind of where my initial reaction was, and I don't feel strongly enough about it to put him in, failing.
I mean, you have to just like pulling a Justin Hall to be failing on the fourth line. Like, just not be in the lineup every single day. But I think overall, yeah, below expectations probably fits a little bit more closely to the profile.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. For this episode. We got 4 more players.
Today. Yeah.
We got Edvinsson, Marco Casper, Jeff Petrie, and Elmer Soderblom. And we probably shouldn't do Soderblom just because he's only played 9 games, but he played the 9 most recent games, and he's fun. So, yeah, we'll talk about him. And it's fun because it's our list, and we get to do what we want. Anyways, Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, probably talking a little bit about USA-Sweden, the no-stakes game with 2 Red Wings in it. And, of course, finishing out player evals. So stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.